Hello, everyone. This is Shauna from Jeffco PTA. Thank you for joining us. So this is actually a pretty exciting meeting. We had more interest in this particular meeting than we've had for quite some time. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen sorry, just a minute. I hate to see big head Shauna on the screen. Hopefully you all have your settings so that you're not seeing just me and you're seeing everyone. Here we go. And we'll do all of the formalities of our meeting that we have to do as a legal entity. So here's our meeting date. And we need to approve tonight's agenda. And we can approve it by consensus. So if anybody has any objections or anything you wanted to add to it, we can add to it under new business. Can we approve it by consensus? Give me a thumbs up. I'll let Kay, Jen, help me monitor. Thumbs up if we can just approve it by consensus. Board members, you're the ones voting. Everybody looks good. All right, and the approval of the November minutes. So, and of course you saw the board reports as well. Those were all in the packets. Can we approve that by consensus? If you have any minor changes that you need to write, if your name was misspelled or something like that, just go right ahead and send Kay or me an email and we will take care of it. Approval by consensus, good to go. Fabulous. Financial report will be our next one. So, Miss Debbie, would you unmute yourself, please, and take it away?
Good evening, everybody. We have $22,821.35 in checking. There is an uncleared check in there, so we've got to deduct that. That went to Colorado PTA for our members that I know Jen will tell you about. So our checking has $22,683.85. Our little savings account has $57.80. It pretty much always stays there. And our our restricted Jane Hammond funds, $5,918.40 for a total of $28,660.05. As usual with the pandemic, not a whole lot going on.
That's good though. So we did have a little bit of money that came in for scholarships. So we need to keep working on that. And obviously we want to hand off an organization to our next leadership in very sound condition. So any questions for Debbie? All right, we're going to just move right through then. Mike is our nominating committee chair. And Mike, I was hoping you would take the lead on this one.
Yeah, good evening. Good to see everybody. We conducted several meetings with the nominating committee. Those of you who were at previous meetings know who those folks were that got added onto the committee. It's a cross-section of Jeffco PTA board and community members from our Jeffco PTA community. It was a very interesting process. I've been on a number of nominating committees, including one at Colorado PTA. And I found that everybody contributed significantly and everybody had opinions and inputs and ideas and suggestions. It was a great group effort and I was very pleased with how it went. And we also, if you've had any experience with these kind of committees, you very rarely have, you're usually struggling to get people to fill specific slots. We had a couple of board positions that we had more than one nominee for. It's unheard of. So I think it speaks well of the bench that we have in Jeffco PTA and in the community. And I think that we are going to be well served should the membership approve the slate come the March general meeting. As you can see here are the people that came out of the nominating committee as the recommended slate. And Kay Slater is president and Wendy as VP of Outreach, and Jen Granberry is going to come back as membership. Tina will be communications. Amy Nitto will be secretary, and Amy Sapphire will be treasurer. And then we've got the nominating committee is supposed to come with at least 4 AAVPs, and we have the AAVPs that are listed here. we did lose Carrie from this just last week. Carrie and her husband have started a business that I think they're still working their full-time jobs and then working a business as well. And she just resigned as an AVP because they're just too engaged with trying to get the business off and going. So we really miss her. And so she was nominated to continue, but she's asked to be removed. Okay. So additionally, we've made a recommendation that Natalie be the chair for legislative, and she's been working with Jana and others, for some time in legislative matters. So she's looks like a natural. So I'm very excited to represent the nominating committee and presenting this information. And then I'm also going to take a side here as the AVP mentor currently. We're down 3 AVPs right now. And so you saw in the email I sent yesterday to the AVPs, going to need some help. I need to find some candidates. And really at this point of the year, we should be looking for new candidates with the idea that they could be added to this next term. So they could spend the rest of this school year training, being an AVP, and I'll train them up. And then hopefully they'll continue on into the next period, the 21-23 term. So again, I think we've got a great slate here, and I enjoyed the process of being part of pulling all this together with the committee. Thank you.
Well, I think you had an awesome committee, so of really awesome people. I'll say awesome many, many times tonight. And I am so very proud of the work that you've done, and I'm so very proud of this slate of nominees. So we look forward to that. Everybody who's on here, so if you're a PTA member, we actually hold elections at our March general meeting. We've changed our format here at Jeffco PTA where all of our meetings are open to the public, so that everybody can see how to run a program instead of just doing business and talking about committees, which is more engaging for your community. So we're trying to be a good example of that. And our March general meeting is exactly the same as our regular meetings now, but everyone is invited to come participate in that. And you all as PTA members get to vote on this slate of nominees. So as you saw in your newsletter. So thank you so very, very, very much. And actually, before we hit Christopher, looks like I made a mistake and I missed Jennifer Granberry. So Jen Granberry, who's VP of membership, but I'm so glad actually that Christopher's picture is up here. Jennifer is going to give us a little update on membership for Jeffco PTA, and we are one of only 5 PTAs who have grown in membership during the pandemic. That's huge. So congratulations, Jeffco PTA, and thank you, Jen.
Not as much as I wanted, though.
Well,
I wanted triple digits, and I'm off by 10. But our membership, as we reported in February, our February 1st membership report hit 90, which is pretty awesome. I still missed my 100 mark, but I will say I want to thank Mr. Shu for joining the PTA. It's the first time since I've been a VP of membership that a superintendent has been a part of the Jeffco PTA. And I really appreciate you joining the PTA, and I'm excited to work with you and have you with us.
I got the pom-poms out just for you, Christopher Shu. You're awesome. Really, really appreciate that. It's been 6 years in the making, and we're really excited to have you. So thank you very much for your partnership. Have very much appreciated how welcoming you've been and open that you've been to talking with us about everything. So thank you. Huge kudos. Jonna had her hand raised. Jonna, do you have a question before we go on?
No, I was just going to congratulate Jen on her work on membership.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
She's done a fantastic job. And without further ado, so Christopher Shu, our interim superintendent of Jeffco Public Schools. Christopher, please take it away.
Hi, thanks, Shauna. Hi, everybody. Great to be here. And just want to come and give a district update. And we do have Dr. Susan Leach, who's our Chief Student Success Officer, who comes and represents. So just I'll give an update, and of course, all questions and and additional information she can always provide. But thanks for giving me some time just to come and let you know what's happening here in Jeffco. So we've got some celebrations to start, and that's the fact that our students are back in person. And really the thanks to that is from you who live here in Jefferson County, because the rates of COVID in Jefferson County continue to drop. And nationally, we are ranked third. We're third best in the nation. And Jefferson County in the metro area, we are the second lowest or the second best as far as rates. So that is really, it's really important to state that and thank all of you, because it really was the appeal to everyone in our county to say, please wear your mask and follow the health mitigation strategies, because as the rates drop in Jefferson County, of course, it also impacts and really helps our schools. So I want to thank you for all that. We did rotate to 100% remote right before Thanksgiving, and we are now back, which is great in that same model. So we returned our K-5 learners to 100% in person on Tuesday, January 19th. And then this past Monday, we returned our 612 back to our hybrid environment, and we continue to monitor that data. And I'm happy to say that of the three categories, if you follow the dial, the Colorado dial, three categories we talk a lot about are the incident rates, or the number of new cases per 14 days per 100,000 people. And we continue to drop. So we actually moved into orange on Monday, to level orange, and we continue to drop. We're at 338. I bet you if I looked, usually it's updated about 5 o'clock, we're probably even lower than that. So big celebration there. The percent of average positivity, which is the average number of positive cases over 2 weeks by all the people who go ahead and take that PCR test in Jefferson County. We are now at 4.8%. So we dropped, we're in level green, which is a huge celebration. And then our hospitalization, which is something that is very important to look at, that is level yellow. And we've been in level yellow or 10 now since January 21st. So really important, big celebrations. That allows us to bring our students back and keep our students in school. It also allows us to keep our rates low in our schools, because there is a correlation between what happens in our community and what happens in our schools. As the transmission, once again, is all the science and data, it's the adults that continue to transmit this virus. So really happy and thankful. So I thank you for all of that. The vaccines, see Jefferson County, not school district, but the county continues to roll out the vaccines. And just to clarify, people still email me and say, hey, what are you doing with the vaccines? School districts do not have any, we don't oversee the vaccines. We don't receive vaccines. We don't put shots in people's arms. That is not what school districts do. We rely on our hospitals and our clinics and our county to really manage that. Our county is doing a fine job. Really proud of Jefferson County and our public health partners. We have been fortunate that our hospitals and some of our clinics, when they have extra doses remaining, they contact us through Julie Wilkin, our director of health services, or our nurses, and we're able to say, hey, we've got a couple of people that we can send to these clinics and get vaccines. So gradually, the individuals that are in category 1B on the phases, more and more of those Jeffco employees that qualify in 1B, those are our nurses and health specialists and our health designees, more and more are getting the vaccines, which is great. And eventually we'll move into below the dotted line, if you're familiar with the phases, which moves into educators, and then non-student facing educators, administrators like me, then we will be able to qualify for the vaccines as well as we move through February and into March. So we're hopeful. Vaccines are making a big difference. We still wear all of our personal protective equipment, PPE, follow our health mitigation strategies. So our schools are doing a fine job. And once again, I want to thank all of you on that. School finance is my second topic to talk about. So school finance is always an important issue when it comes to schools and families and students. And the governor does have a proposal forward. We're hopeful that it will help. As you might imagine, all the school districts in Colorado lost enrollment as families sought a different form of education for their child, whether it was 100% remote or homeschooling. So that's an impact, fewer students, fewer dollars. So we are looking for an adjustment for the budget stabilization factor. We are receiving additional federal funds, which really helps, which is in terms of ESSER funds. So we are still in a situation in Jeffco where we need to reduce about $54 million in our budget, and that will take its toll, but we will move through that judiciously and count on our fine Board of Education members to help us through that. So that's what's going on with our with the school finance. And then the last thing is superintendent hiring. So we do have there are a number of school districts in the Front Range that have superintendent openings. Actually, the 4 largest school districts do, and that is Denver, Jefferson County, and Cherry Creek and Douglas County. Poudre also does. So the superintendent search is going on in Jefferson County. Many of you might have gotten on and given feedback to our search committee, Hazard and Young, and just to provide that information for our board as far as what skill set we're looking for, what we need in our next superintendent here in Jefferson County, as I'm just filling the interim superintendent role here for this year, just so you know. So that's that moving forward. Thank you for all of you who engaged on that. We will move through applications. We'll close in a couple of weeks. They will begin interviewing candidates in March, and then some kind of announcement for all of us sometime here in April. So those are the updates here in Jefferson County for Jefferson County Public Schools. And I'll take any questions if anybody has one. And Shauna, as always, thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you. Christopher, really, really appreciate you doing this, and really appreciate actually David Bell remembered Jeffco PTA. So PTA this last time and set up a number of PTA sessions with me so that we advertise to our membership at large here in Jefferson County. And really, really appreciate that. So, and as I said again, credit to you. So for joining Jeffco PT, and of course, Dr. Leach for engaging with us as well. It's been several years, and you know that's been a little, little bean in my mouth.
It's all about Shauna and Jonna. Everyone knows that. Martha Tate's on here. There's a number of people on here that I know. So. I'm a big supporter of PTA. I've been in Jefferson County for 21 years, and this is my 28th in education. And my wife's a teacher, and both of our kids are in Jeffco Public Schools. So thank you for everything you do. The community supports our school district, and PTA is a huge part of that. So thank you for
it. And we will always continue to be a part of that. So I know the next leadership will as well. Questions about community budget forums. We were kind of wondering how that might actually run here. And then Jonna also wanted you to talk about the decline in the, talk a little bit about the category.
Kind of broke up a little bit there, Shauna.
Oh, sorry about that. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Community budget forums coming, and then decline enrollment, free and reduced lunch.
So we'll start with the budget forum. So our Board of Education will be looking for feedback from the community. We actually started that process already in the fall. We started up a budget work group where people could volunteer and sign up for that. There were 2 surveys that went out, one through your school accountability, if you're connected with your school. Another one just went out to the community. And it provided feedback to the board regarding how they should prioritize the reductions in Jefferson County. So that information was provided. The budget forums that are coming up, they'll start here soon, will be in the evenings. And we're actually looking forward to them. And let me explain that. In the past, when we have budget forums, they're live. So if you want to be a part of that, you have to find that time in the evening, drive to the school, be a part of that. And we are utilizing, it's the silver lining in the pandemic, I've been telling everyone, is Zoom. Look at all this. Do you normally have this many people in a PTA meeting? Probably, knowing all of you, but it's so much more convenient, and here's your voice in the comfort of your home. And I got to tell you, I get invited to Rotary meetings, and typically people have glasses of wine, and it's a blast. So it makes it more comfortable and more convenient for people to come together. So we are looking forward to using that platform this year, and we really feel like we'll have even more engagement than normal, and people have a chance to talk and share their thinking with the Board of Education and really help them frame their thinking around the budget reductions that so many school districts need to make. And COVID, it's had its impact. There's no doubt about that. So there's that. The enrollment, you'd asked about enrollment. So we have in Jefferson County typically about 84,000 students. And this year we have 4,000 students that did not enroll in our schools or our online programs. So that's pretty typical up and down in Colorado, up and down the Front Range. And these families saw different educational opportunities for their kids. The biggest impact we had was kindergarten, first grade. And that's because so many families said, you know what, they're calling it a red shirt year, if you're familiar with that. If you were an athlete in college, then your freshman year, if you don't compete, it's your redshirt year. Then you get 4 years of eligibility. Many parents said, we're just going to hold off. We're going to wait another year to enroll our child in kindergarten, one more year to enroll our child in first grade. So we have seen that loss in enrollment in those grades. And then other families decided a little bit worried about COVID and the virus, and they decided to homeschool their child or find an online school that really fit and suited the needs of their child. So that is the enrollment loss right there. Free reduced lunch in Jefferson County, we're usually around 33% free reduced lunch. And we don't have solid numbers this year because of this. Because of the USDA and our federal government, and I will give them a ton of credit, our lunches are free this year in Jefferson County. So any child that comes to school, they can have a free breakfast, they can get a free lunch. If you are remote, you can go and pick up lunch and breakfast for multiple days. So it's free. And because of that, it's been wonderful. We've had many families who've said, that's good, so I won't fill out that application, that paperwork. And so we don't really have a really strong grasp on potentially what that free reduced lunch percentage is in Jeffco this year. We'll have a better idea as we roll into next year. As we always encourage our families to do that, because it also waives their fees, their tech fees and different fees, athletic fees. So it's really important that families are filling that out. But that's the update on enrollment and our free reduced lunch count.
And we do have the school meals and free and reduced lunch application links all on our website as well. So that we're putting that out.
I also want to tell you this, we started something fun, and all the credit goes to Beth Wallace, our executive director of food nutrition services, and Erica Edwards, our director. They started using our buses to deliver foods to communities, and they have been piloting, and they have got a number of routes, I think 6 or 7 routes now. And that's fun. As families we're finding they're having a difficult time getting to their school because of lack of transportation, or they're working. So we now have buses that roll through communities and pilot programs. And that's been successful to have families come out to our buses, and we're able to give them the meals right there.
Thank you. Jonna, did that answer your question fully as well?
Yes, I know that there's been a lot of concern on behalf of the districts. At least I believe there's been a lot of concern on behalf of the districts, in that the October count dropped the free and reduced because of the paperwork missing and everything, but because they suspect that they don't want their funding cut because of the October count, because they all expect a good deal of these students to return, is what I've heard, which is concerning for sure.
Yeah, and as school districts, we are hopeful, and hope's not a strategy. Kevin Carroll used to tell me that years ago. And so we are anticipating that this really has been an impact for families because of COVID, multi-generational families, and they just couldn't take that chance, or their underlying health conditions. So we are hopeful and planning that once we return, vaccines are more prevalent, and people are more comfortable with that, our students will return to us, especially kindergarten, first grade. There will be a COVID bubble for sure, years to come in Jefferson County. And then, as you all know, in 5 years, we expect another COVID bubble to show up, as birth rates have been increasing. Our very own Tom McDermott, just so you know, our chief strategy officer, he and his wife had a baby 2 weeks ago. So they live in the Mole Home area. So thank you, Tom McDermott.
Great. There you go. So we do have another question here too, which is, I'm kind of laughing because I'm reading the chat as well. One of the questions was, do you think more families will go 100% online after this experience? And a few of the remote families in here said, as an online family right now, my answer is a resounding no, us too. We're going back next year. No, for us too. Same here. And then also, do you think online learning will be an option going forward?
It will. So a couple of questions. So let me give you some numbers. So we have 80,000 students in Jeffco. 20,000 students are 100% remote, and 60,000 students are in-person hybrid. So those families that chose 100% remote for a number of reasons, I'm also getting feedback from those families that this is really working for these families and these kids, and they're thriving. I can tell you my very own child, who's a sophomore, loves it and would like to be 100% remote. And we said no. So I took her back to school today for the first time. But we told her, if you get A's and B's and no missing assignments, we will engage in that conversation for next year. So we are finding families that they're really enjoying this and their kids are enjoying this. I'm also hearing from teachers who are saying, I love this. I never thought I would. This really fits my lifestyle. I think I'm great at it. So we will have, right now, we do have Jeffco Virtual Academy, which is a grade 6 through 12 online, but it's asynchronous, which means the students don't necessarily get on at 8 o'clock and have a class from 8 to 9. There's office hours and opportunities, lots of interaction. There's actually in person as well, but it's really more of an asynchronous focus. We are now building a K-12 online synchronous school in Jefferson County. So Marcia Anchor, Tom McDermott have been the lead. Our very own Susan Leach is involved, community superintendents. So a lot of input from a lot of great people. We will be building our own online school. We've learned a lot since March, and we are ready to be effective and compete with the other online schools. We are looking at making a connection, and this is something that the other online schools can offer. So let's say you've got a student who is enrolled at Lakewood High School. They would like to be online, but they're also in marching band and ceramics. They want to be in school for marching band and ceramics. So we're trying to build a school where they can be 100% online because they thrive that way. But for those in-person learning experiences, they can have that. They can play baseball. They can play volleyball. They can be in the musical. They can graduate and get a diploma from Lakewood High School because they're a Tiger. So we are trying to build a school where there's a connection to Leawood. There's a connection to Stony Creek, Oberon, Chatfield. So a student can still say that's my home school. But once again, I really think this environment fits me better, no matter, what their learning style or what's happening in their lives. So that is something we look forward. We are building it out. We will start engaging more with individuals to pressure test it. We should be communicating that here in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. Well, thank you. And actually, John and I are on this back committee. So, because of course we are. And Tom McDermott did mention that as well, a little bit in there. So we look forward for more information. And I know you've actually also committed to joining us for updates as you're able, of course. So, and of course we have Dr. Leach if you're not able as well. But thank you very much. And I know Helen did say that you may have another engagement after this. So I know you can't stay for the full time. So I get it. So we appreciate, here's my pom-pom. See, there we go, Christopher. So thank you for joining us. Does anybody else have any other questions? If not, can I please ask it? I'll do at least a silent applause. So, and thanks for joining us, and really, really loud ruckus applause for joining PTA, Christopher. You get points for me for that one.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
You too. And
on to Dr. Leach.
Right, here we go. The fabulous, amazing Chief Student Success Officer, Dr. Susan Leach. We have been so very grateful to have Susan join our board here. So she did it without being recruited. So she wasn't asked. She just joined right up with PTA. So of course she's in my heart, more so than most other people, because she just did it. And as PTA members, we all know that's the right thing to do. So Susan, I know you were going to give us some updates, and everybody loved the Ask Dr. Leach event that we did with you earlier this year, and they loved your keynote speech for fall conference. So speak away, please.
Thanks, Shauna. You do wonders for my ego. But thank you. One of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight, and I'm happy to answer any questions when I get done, but it seems to be kind of the hot topic right now, is mental health. And so we're hearing a lot of things about lots of kids are struggling with mental health, or what is the district doing about mental health? And so I wanted to say a couple things. One, a caution, and the caution is about pathologizing some things that may be natural. And I want to explain a little bit. So when I was in graduate school, one of my professors, when we were learning about, diagnoses and mental illness and diagnosing, one of my professors said, pathology is an abnormal reaction to normal circumstances. And I would argue right now that what we're seeing are normal reactions to abnormal circumstances. We've never done this before. It's been very restrictive for many of us. We're struggling. And of course, so are our kids. Our kids are struggling. And so I caution people about pathologizing that behavior, because for many children, we know our kids are resilient. Most kids are very resilient. So for many of our children, I think that a big answer for them is going to be getting them back into their normal routines. That's very curative for them and very healing for them. I also know that some kids aren't going to do well, and this will be really, really hard for them to overcome or bounce back from. And so when I was talking to the board about this a couple weeks ago, I said it reminded me of living in Florida and when they were predicting a hurricane and you knew it was coming, but you really weren't sure what you were going to get until it actually got there. And so you prepared as best you could, and then you kind of waited, braced to see what was going to happen. And I almost get that same sense now, because we're hearing this a lot anecdotally, right? This can be a nebulous term, mental health issues. That might mean my kid's driving me nuts and they're not behaving because they're going nuts being cooped up in the house, but it could be something really serious and clinical in nature. So we know it's out there. We know that there's a broad spectrum of what that means to people. We just don't have specifics yet. We just know a lot of things anecdotally. And so what we're doing as we wait for that is we're preparing a lot in terms of our infrastructure. And I've talked about this before, but in my mind and in my professional experience, the best infrastructure that we can lay as a district is having a solid MTSS framework. And for those of you who aren't familiar with that, that stands for multi-tiered systems of support. It should be a way of work for every school. In Jeffco, we have schools doing this in various fashions, as we do in Jeffco. Every school's kind of doing their own version of it. And we're really working hard to kind of systematize this. And the reason we are is because when kids come back to us, this gives us a framework for assessing all children and then being able to provide interventions that are matched directly to the student's needs. And we do that by having a tiered framework where there's a tier one where everybody's getting kind of our core curriculum. And that's not just academics, that's also in social emotional learning, behavior, there's something for all children. And then when we look at our data and we see not all of our children are responding to that data, and this is very consistent with what I was saying before, lots of our students, when they come back, they're going to step right in and they're going to rebound and they'll be fine. But we also know that probably about 20% may need a little bit more than what the general offering is. And so we'll provide intervention. And then beyond that, we think probably maybe another 3 to 5% of that 20% aren't going to respond adequately to that second level of intervention. So then we'll bump it up and give them even more specific intervention. So having that framework in place will be a really great mechanism for allowing us to assess and respond when we have all kids back all the time. So what are we doing now? We have lots of different things going on. First and foremost, I would say that every school has a mental health team, and some of you are on our screen tonight. But so some of you, I'm preaching to the choir, but we have a mental health team in every school, and that could be any combination of school psychologist, school social worker, a school counselor, a social emotional learning specialist, or a school nurse. And individuals in the school are really focused on teaming so that all the needs of the students are met. And they've worked really hard since March on adapting everything they do to be delivered virtually. So regardless of whether your student is in person or virtual, they should have access to the same kinds of services. We've done a lot with adapting the training that we do, and what we have really come to believe is that we can't just rely on that mental health team to reach every single student. And so where we get more bang for our buck is that we train all of the staff in the school. And one of the things that we really are striving for is to have a caring connection with every student every day. And we can't do that with the limited resources of the mental health teams. So we are spreading those practices and training like trauma-informed classroom care and youth mental health first aid and those things that we know everybody in the schools needs in order to serve students and know how to respond when they see behaviors or things that are concerning. So I could go on and on and on, but I think it would
You
probably
are
be
so
better served if you asked me questions.
You are so very amazing. And you know, that's been the mental health piece has been one of our priority. School safety has been one of our priority and support for our non-traditional learners, which has turned into everyone during the pandemic during this. So Dr. Leach, we are so very, very grateful to you, everything that you're doing. I also happen to know that you are somewhat of an expert on MTSS. So, yep, and have a lot of experience
Yes.
with that. So we are so very fortunate to have you in Jeffco, and I keep hearing your name everywhere in Jeffco. Yeah, so thank
Thank
you,
you.
Dr. Leach, in the chat. So yes,
Yeah.
so very much. You are such a very good partner to parents. And if you all are actually not aware, even before she joined PTA, um, as leaders in the community, we tend to get a lot of personal issues with various families. We get contacted about those and need to help students, find someone to go to in the district because, they're hitting roadblocks and dealing with some problems at, their school, classroom, whatever it is. And not only do I hear your name from all the special ed parents raving about you and Matt, so as well.
That's amazing.
But every single one of the parents who contacted us this year, I believe you have been the one person who has responded to every parent I have sent you. So,
It's one of the things I love most about my job. And so I'm always, always happy to talk to parents and fix and try to help problem solve when they're having issues. So I appreciate that.
well, it's appreciated from all of us as well, and especially families when they're running up against those issues. So huge thank you. Round of applause. I've got my pom-poms for you too.
Shauna, can I just say one more thing? I was going to put a link in the chat and I didn't do that because I was talking, but another thing that we've really worked hard on this year is the mental health and wellness hub. And you can Google Jeffco Mental Health and Wellness Hub. There are a ton of resources on there for families and staff. So I would recommend that as well.
Yeah, and we can still put it in the chat. So yes, and Wendy says too, you are amazing, and we are so lucky to have you. And I agree with Wendy so very much. Yes, lots and lots of thank yous. We should roll out the red carpet for you, Dr. Leach. You are amazing. Thank you very much for everything that you do.
You're very welcome. Putting in the chat now.
Oh, perfect. Great. And then I will send that out via email and we'll get it on our website as well. So of course, anything that you want on our website, it's yours. Presentation time. So really super excited for this one. So I'd like to introduce you to my friend, Tabby. Tabby is an amazing person who I met in the community years and years ago, and we just ended up being friends. Tabby is a wonderful person, a really fun person. If you see, are involved and active around Jeffco, so in advocacy issues, chances are you're going to run into her. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And Tabby has already been made a co-host. So Tabby, I'm going to let you just take it away.
Thank you, Shauna. I'm blaming Chris Teagarden for you and I crossing paths.
That's a good one too. He's a former mayor of
Yeah, my bestest buddy who now moved to Wisconsin and kind of pissed me off. But hey, he had to leave with his wife. There's that wife thing. But
yeah.
Hi guys, my name is Tabitha, as Shauna said. Give me a sec. I'm not as good at this this stuff as other people are. So bear with me. I'm gonna try to share this. Okay, hang on.
It's coming.
Okay, I got there. Now where am I? Can you guys see my screen? Probably not, huh?
Nope, just see you right now.
Oh, that's fun. Hang on.
At the very
I apologize.
You're good.
Okay, so share screen, right?
Yep.
There we go. Aha. Okay, I found it. Sorry. I'm doing this on our desktop in our spare bedroom instead of doing it out at my desk that I have to use because I'm remote from work. But here we go. We'll start. Come on. There we go. All right.
No specific title or organization for Tabby. Her bio is actually on the event page on the website. And you can just go ahead and grab that one for minutes. But Tabby does work in mental health.
Yeah, I work for Jefferson Center for Mental Health. I've been with Jefferson Center for 9.5 years. I am not a clinician. I'm a senior administrative assistant. And I do this for Jefferson Center and for anybody who really asks. Now I'm letting you know this too. This is the first time I've done anything that's been geared to teens. Usually most of my presentations are about adult transgender. So this may be, I'm going to be things might be a little sketchy for a sec until I get into the swing of it. Cause I put this together today. So first off, I'm not a clinician. This is my life experiences. So it's not that, it's not every transgender person. And I'm going to be sharing my childhood experiences, and I'm up there in age. So we're all talking about, the 1960s, 70s. We'll leave it there as far as that goes. Shauna's going to be paying attention to questions. So if you have any questions during my presentation, she'll shoot them out at me, and or we can wait till the end, however Shauna wants to do it. I don't mind either way, because basically our goals for today is I love open-minded discussions. My presentations are very much organic. I don't like to sit here and just drone on for an hour and a half and say, tell you everything that you need to know and not expect some sort of interaction. In fact, this is the thing that kills me about Zoom presentations, is that I don't get that personal interaction. I don't get people saying, well, wait a minute, I want to know this.
Well, this is not a shy group. So if they want to jump in and do that, but I have also offered for everyone too, if you want to send me private questions that maybe you're too intimidated to ask in public, that's totally okay as well.
And I'm not afraid to answer anything. Ask Shauna.
Yep, me either.
I will answer truthfully if I know, and if I don't, I will let you know that I don't, and I will find I will do the research to find what you are asking me for. So first off, open-minded discussion. Second of all, I'm gonna get you out of your comfort zone. Folks, this is some really tough stuff. Okay, I'm not gonna lie to you. I had some serious issues going through some of the statistics and stuff that I was looking at today. It hurts. It hurts a lot. So when I say I'm going to take you out of your comfort zone, I'm not just going to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, come here, let's move over here. No, I'm going to grab you by your collar and drag you out. There are some triggers here. If you are triggered, I apologize right off. I'm glad that there's a therapist here so that you might be able to talk to her. But anyway, so there is actually, someone actually sat down and wrote a paper on, it's called 14 steps. So we're going to go over those we're going to kind of cover those 14 steps of starting from the questioning to the end result of being transgender. Like I said, a few important statistics, and like I said, they're not pretty. The societal effects, what society, because of society's need to label what it does to our kids and what it does to the transgender community on the whole, or basically the LGBTQ period. Excuse me. What and what not to say. There is, there are things you just don't ask people. Pronouns. You're going to learn pronouns. Trust. You may think you know pronouns. You don't know pronouns. And then I have some resources at the very end. So we're going to jump right into it. So 14 steps or stages of transgender identity formation. Now I will share this presentation with Shauna, and she can, or I think she's recording. So, you can always refer back to it, or if you need anything, my information is at the end of the presentation. So you can reach out to me and I can get you whatever information you're looking for. But basically, so the first, we'll just run through these real quick. Stage 1, abiding anxiety. That's usually when the questioning starts. It's you look at things. Okay, so I knew there was something different about me when I was 5. And at 5 years old, I didn't find that I was like most of the other boys. There was a lot of that, even at 5 years old, and people say you can't know. No, you don't know what's wrong, but you do know there's something that just doesn't make sense. Even in your 5-year-old brain, there is something that just doesn't make sense. Then you start going into, preferences for, or some of the actions or preferences for other gender activities and companionship. I have always had more girlfriends than I've ever had friends. And the reason is because I'm not one of these people that like to, and I'm making some some gender assumptions here. Not all men are like this, but there are men who, in the family I grew up in, it was cars, women, or sports. I was 10 years old, 10 or 11, and I used to play dress up with my sister. And my little brother found out and told my mom. My mom told my dad. My dad pulled me into their bedroom and said, "This is the way it works. Little boys play with trucks, girls play with dolls. You want to dress up with your sister again? You have to ask me first." Okay, so went through the day, and then about 4 o'clock, my sister asked if I wanted to play dress up. I said, "Well, I have to ask Dad first." So I asked Dad. He didn't say yes. He didn't say no. It was the look on his face. And I've seen that look ever since. I am not something my father is proud of. My dad threw me into Little League the very next day, made me join Boy Scouts. And for the entire time I was growing up and living in their household, it was working on cars. I mean, I could tell you, I could tear down an engine and rebuild it. Well, up until 1982, when they started using computers. But I can tear down an engine and I can rebuild it. I can listen to your car and tell you exactly what's wrong with it. and I can probably repair it if I needed to. Do I want to? No. My nails and my hands they don't do that anymore. But that was my growing up. That was, and we're talking about late 60s, all through the 70s and 80s. Transgender was something that was not even spoken about. It was, but it was more of the drag queen scene. Even if you were transgender, you were still considered a drag queen. And therapy was not something that was even remotely mentioned, and I was a constant embarrassment. I was in choir and drama. My dad would have wished I was in auto shop and, coming up with some sort of, trade career, as opposed to what I actually started doing, which was I was a chef for 30 years.
Right.
At one point, my dad looked at me and says, "When are you going to get a real job?"
Well,
And
it's kind of interesting.
like,
This is, something that you and I started talking about when we built the LGBTQ plus resources, because
mhm,
and you had all that ready to go. So contacting you is one of the best things I ever did, because the kids, when Morgan got to be a teenager, when they're in middle school, and all of a sudden there were all of these new definitions, and they're
mhm,
totally different than what you and I grew up with. And I
mhm,
was learning from the kids. And, since you're learning from middle schoolers, you're never quite sure if you're learning the right things. So,
yeah, they could tell you anything, and
yeah. And there's, there's a lot of us who want to be allies and figure out the best way to be allies. And we wanted
mhm,
to be inclusive with the PTA and support diversity, which of course includes our LGBTQIA plus
mhm,
community as well.
mhm,
So we built that page on the website, but I learned so much from you and just having this conversation versus how you grew up and how I grew up in rural northeastern Colorado.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. I'm a mountain girl. I was born and raised here. So anyway, getting out of that, trying to give you guys a background as to uh, the different stages. But moving on. So next one is there's a lot of identity confusion, but that's where they're going to start looking for more information, and that's where allies start coming in. That's where people start. Kids will start looking for mentors, or somebody who has more information, gives them a better idea of what it is they're experiencing. Then they start to, there's the identity comparisons and the tolerance of transgender identity. But then there's always, and the thing about these 14 steps is they're not static. They're not just, you go through step 1, step 2, step 3. You can go from 1 to 7 and then back to 3. And a lot of that happens. You'll see, we call it false starts. I went through 3 false starts before I actually totally came out and started my transition. But the final stages, and you're pretty much in that. Most transgender people are spending a lot of time still learning about who they are, because you spend most of your time trying to be somebody you're not. And then suddenly you're starting to say, okay, screw it, I'm going to start doing who I am. But it's figuring out, especially me I was 40 when I finally came out. So I've got 40 years of deprogramming and learning about who I might actually be. And there's a lot of trauma involved with that, and there's a lot of other things that are involved with that. But that's where therapy and allies. I'm thankful for, like I mentioned, Chris Teagarden, Shauna, I have a great support group, a support system now, and kids need that support too, from their educators, from their parents, from their peers. And it's just teaching. And my thing is, you won't see me standing on the side of the street with a sign screaming and riot, or, screaming and demonstrating. My advocacy is more about education and about advocacy, political advocacy. And everybody has their own means of being an advocate, being an ally, being whoever they are. So yeah. And Bugs Bunny has always been my favorite. And so and it's true, where most of us who are, well, and I'm guessing we're all about the same age, that we learned about classical music and gender fluidity, because Bugs was the greatest cross-dresser there ever was. My personal opinion.
That's a good, hadn't thought about that, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. Bugs was the first, as a child, you don't get the whole, it's just Bugs Bunny dressing as a girl. You don't think about the implications until you're more of an adult. And that's what I love about Looney Tunes cartoons. I enjoy them so much more now because I get the jokes. As a kid, you were just getting, all you got was, you understood the slapstick. You didn't understand half of what they were talking about. Now you understand. Okay, so next, this is what I use for the kids when I've given this out to a lot of my a lot of the clinicians that work at Jefferson Center, because it helps them show a child or a younger adult who's questioning what gender expression and gender identity and the difference between sexual orientation and gender identity. My identity does not have anything to do with my sexual orientation. So many people ask me questions like, well, if you're a girl, how come you're not interested in guys? I'm sorry, boys are icky. I'm a trans lesbian. I like girls. I always have, always will. But this is a great, and I think, Shauna, did I give you the brochure, a copy of the brochure that back in the...
Yeah, that's actually, and I even shared it in our chat. So on the page that we
Okay.
developed, so that brochure is up there as well.
Great. I don't know if I've got this one, but I think it's either, I think I either have the Gingerbread Man or the Gender Unicorn. I can't remember which one. Or Gingerbread
okay.
Person.
I might not have that one, but we can most certainly put it up there, of course.
Yeah, I can send it. I'll send it to you and you can put it where it needs to go.
Yeah.
But this is great. And honestly, for educators, this is a great, especially for younger kids that are not understanding things. It's fun. And I love unicorns. So, and I adapted this from another site, and I just had to play with the unicorn. It is what it is. You're lucky you don't see a bunch of glitter.
I appreciate this. One of the things that, we keep talking about when friends are pregnant. So, and, for a while there, the big, huge thing was the, gender reveal. So whether you're having a boy or a girl. And, just like, so many things have changed. It used to be, a fact that you don't talk about suicide because suicide's contagious. And of course, suicide is not contagious. So, and we know now that it's very important to talk about suicide. The same as gender reveal, things are changing and we need to learn, and for some of us, I know, especially for those of us of a certain age, it's hard to change this. This is a way we've always done it. Now it's my turn. I don't want to give up the pink because I'm having a child with parts. So
right, exactly.
Culture for sure.
Well, and the thing about biological sex is, yes, it's, we're assigned something at birth. You have a penis, you're a boy. You have a vagina, you're a girl. that's not have anything, doesn't have anything to do with what is going on inside you. Yes, it's a body part,
Mm.
very important body part. The other thing that's on this is the gender fluidity chart. And the gender fluidity chart, basically, gender is fluid. Gender is not static.
Mhm.
So you can, I mean, you have everything from ultra femme women to ultra masculine males, and you have everything that falls in between. And people change all the time. I mean, you have your gender queers or gender fluid queers. Yes, queer. Say it with me, queer.
Queer.
That is a word that the gender or the LGBTQ is taking back. Growing up, queer meant a lot of horrible things. Now it is actually a descriptive of some transgender people or some gay, lesbian people. They choose to use the word queer because they're different, and that's what queer means. Different doesn't mean strange or you know, twisted or whatever, however it was supposed to be, how it was used in this, you know, back in the day. But this is but like gender queer, some people, a transgender person that's gender queer may want to dress as a woman one day and a man at the next day, and kind of somewhere in between the next day. You know, it's all about how they choose to express themselves and what they feel inside. And I think that's where we need to start looking at, is instead of how does this person present, get to know that person, understand that person, and it'll make a whole lot more sense. Okay, this is my favorite question. Okay, so I want everybody to close your eyes. Okay, now I want you to imagine when you were a child. Think really hard about, you know, think about who you were, what you enjoyed, what you liked, what was the most important things to you back then. Okay, now I'm going to ask you some questions. Keep your eyes closed. Well, you don't have to keep your eyes closed now, but just keep that image in your mind while I ask you these questions. What happened to you? What trauma, abuse happened to you? Come on, don't argue with me. Why do you dress like that? You're really brave. We'll talk about brave in a second. Your thought processes are all wrong. Who made you this way or do this? Why would you choose this lifestyle? Your belief in this is all screwed up. So these are questions that anyone from the age, from the time that you figured out that there is something different about you and you're trying to explore that, and you've tried it out on some of your more intimate relationships, family relationships. And some of these are the questions. Some of these questions are exactly, I mean, I've been asked all of these questions or told or had these statements made at some point throughout my entire life. And kids are getting asked these questions. The one that really drives me nuts is, you're really brave. No, I'm not brave. I'm living my life. I'm living who I am. That's not bravery, that's honesty. Bravery is running into a burning building and dragging out somebody who's, you know, has a chance of dying because their house is on fire. That's bravery. We should all be able to live who we are. We should be able to be accepted for who we are. Microaggressions. You're going to see I'm sure you all know what a microaggression is, but I have the definition just in case. Some of these microaggressions are really rough, but they are questions and they are things that parents are saying to their kids. Like this first one, this is a choice. I don't know how many clinicians have come to me and said, how do I deal with this when the parent looks at their child and says, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with you. This is just a choice. You're just acting out. And
well, that's one
the
of
answers, I don't have them because I'm not a clinician. I don't have those answers, but somebody's got to, because somebody's got to be able to get through and get some parents to understand that when they say things like this, it shuts their child down. And they don't feel comfortable or safe talking to their parents. And they should feel, that should be the one or two people they should be most feel safe about talking to. This is another one. Are you sure you're in the right bathroom? Can we get over the bathroom thing, please? Or we don't have gender neutral bathrooms here. I would really like to see, I don't know if they do now, but at one point Jeffco schools didn't have gender neutral bathrooms. If a child feels unsafe, they first of all, they're probably not feeling very safe in some cases as portraying who they really are. And then to actually have to go into a bathroom that society says they can't go into, but they think they're supposed to because they are that gender in their mind. I don't know how I know that I will, when I go into restaurants that I don't feel safe in, I don't drink a whole lot. So I don't have to try to use the restroom because I don't know what's going to happen. A lot of this has to do with culture too. We talk about a lot of intersectionality. We have a lot of marginalized groups, and culture is, different cultures are part of those marginalized groups, and then you compound that with being LGBTQ, and that makes it even harder for the child as they're growing up because their family, their whole entire culture doesn't believe, which doesn't make any sense because I've done my research and I haven't ran into one culture yet that didn't have something to do with transgender in their culture. Indigenous Native Americans in some tribes, they actually believe that transgender people, they call them two-spirit, or they're still called two-spirit. They actually believe that they're shamans, or they walk on both sides. So they were used as mediators between husbands and wives because they can see both sides, which I think is really interesting. And there's a lot of different tribes in Africa, in South America, in India, Japan, everywhere. There's that culture, but society's doing everything they can to pound it down and get rid of it. And then, okay, so quick disclaimer, whatever your religious beliefs are, whatever God you pray to, religion is probably one of the hardest things for a transgender child, because I do love you, but your lifestyle is a sin. Don't ask me to approve of something you need to repent and turn away from. I'm not going to get on my soapbox.
Well, we talked about this earlier when you and I were
yes, we did.
talking earlier.
Yes.
And we cover some of this in suicide prevention as well. It is not necessary to tell people if your religious belief is that they're not okay with who they are. If your religion is not accepting, okay, if you want to hold on to that belief, that's fine. It doesn't mean that you need to say it out loud. or to those people. For people who religion is important and who fit into the LGBTQ plus lifestyle, if that's who they are and they're a part of a religion like I am, so which is why I'm, that I grew up in and I'm lukewarm in now, please guide them to another church like Jeffco Unitarian Church or somewhere where it is more accepting and it's okay, because we don't need to put those people at risk.
Yeah, Mile High, it's a great church. I attended there I've attended there a few times, but I'm also a recovering Southern Baptist, recovering IFB. If you don't know what IFB is, it's International Fundamentalist Baptist, or under International Fundamentalist Baptists. Yeah, I'm actually pagan and Wiccan, because I got tired of being told that, God cared and Jesus cared, but you didn't see it when you walked out of church Sunday afternoon. The only time you saw it was in church. And that's where you got the hellfire and brimstone sermons. But that being said, that's really a hard one. And then this one that kids hear from their peers, from some of their teachers, some of their parents, their siblings, whatever. You have to expect that you're going to be treated this way if you don't conform to social norms. I don't wake up in the morning and go, I think I want to be tormented and teased and possibly beat up or worse. So yeah, that's what I want to do today. So that's why I'm going to dress like this. Being a lesbian or gay, it's a lot harder to tell unless you are very vocal about that. As a person who's transgender, you're out there. You're putting it out there every day, and you're taking those chances on getting tormented and bullied. And those kids, if there's any bravery, I would have to say for me, that would be the bravery. Would be a 14, 15, 16-year-old child who's decided that I don't care what people say, I'm going to be me, and put themselves out there for the ridicule and the possible abuse that can happen to them. But they do it. They do it every day. And those are the kids that, you just want to walk up and give a gigantic hug to and say, I'm here for you.
And Tabby, I do have questions coming in, so you tell me when you want to start questions.
You can let me get past the stats, and then we can go into questions, okay?
Yes.
Does that work? Okay, so let's start with statistics. Life in the US. I don't know if anybody knows this, but almost 2% of high school students identify as transgender or non-binary. Transgender students, these are the risks they face. 27% feel unsafe at or going to or from school. 35% are bullied at school, and 35% have attempted suicide. Safe and supportive schools can help. And I don't have kids in school anymore, so I'm not as up on what's going on in Jeffco as I probably should be as an advocate, but I don't know I'm not sure exactly what Jeffco's doing, but I'm hoping that it's with Shauna there, I can guarantee, and some of you others, I can guarantee that it's not as bad as some other school districts.
Sweet.
So we're going to go through some glossary terms real quick. I know that they're on your guys' website, but I just wanted, in case you haven't seen them, these are some of the ones that we're going to touch on in the rest of the statistics. So I just want to make sure everybody had them so they kind of know what I'm talking about. Probably the biggest one is LGBTQ, but that's just part of the acronym. If we wanted to really talk about what the acronym is, it's about this long, because you have lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, pansexual, transsexual, Questionings intersect, intergender, asexual, ally, yeah, I mean, it just goes on and on and on. So yeah, so we just go LGBTQ plus. The other one that is gonna be coming up is cisgender. Cisgender is not a slur. It's not something that a transgender person looks at a straight person and goes, "You're cis." No, it's not meant that way. What it's meant as is it basically is saying that cis is opposite of trans. Cis is a person whose gender identity, gender expression, and biological sex all align. So if you're a male and you feel male and you don't feel any other, and you're heterosexual, then you're cis. But a gay person or a lesbian can also be cis because they are still okay with their gender identity and their gender expression. That's why you have people that we call TERFs. Who knows what TERF it means? Just click on your show of hands buttons, guys. If you don't know, a TERF is a trans exclusionary radical feminist. It is the feminist movement. Some women in the feminist movement feel that trans females are just men wearing women's clothes to infiltrate the lesbian or the female realm so they can steal women. Honestly, guys, yes, I like girls, but I don't, that's not what as far as a trans person, that's the last thing on my mind. I'm just, honestly, all I'm trying to do is eke out my corner of the world and live my life. That's it. And most of us, that's what we want. We don't care about half of the stuff that we're being told we're doing. Anyway, dead name. That's another thing that is that's really hard, especially for younger kids, because
Yes.
they have chosen a name, but nobody wants to use it because it's not right, which is wrong. If a child goes to school and they've said that this is my chosen name, and it does, and here's the thing, here's the funny part about all of it is that you have kids who are cis children who go by their middle name or who use initials and things like that. What's the difference if a boy wants to use, or a boy wants to use a girl's name? It doesn't change anything, but society says it does. Fluidity, we've already kind of discussed. Female to male, male to female. It's not used as much anymore unless you're on on like Craigslist on a dating site, and then you don't, yeah. And if you've got kids that are doing that, then you ground from Craigslist. So it's, and they like post-op. Even now, it's not even used that much. Gender expression, we've discussed. Gender identity, we've discussed. Outing. Tell you a quick story about outing. And this happens to kids all the time too. I'm in a waiting room at Kaiser. About 50 people in this waiting room that day. And the nurse, I'm there for an appointment, nurse comes out and uses my dead name. I walk up to her and very quietly and politely say, "My name is not that, my name is Tabitha." And she's like, "Are you sure?" Really? So she says, "Well, we'll come out and get you in a second." I go and sit down. I'm not kidding. There were two guys sitting right across from where I was sitting that actually were handing money back and forth because they had bets on whether I was male or female. And then not only did that happen, but then the nurse comes back out to take me back and uses my dead name again. So outing is, that's an extreme case of outing. But you probably have it in schools too, where the child is wanting to use that chosen name, and you have administrators, you have teachers that are not, or deliberately don't care, and they're going to use the dead name because that's what's right. I mean, as far as that goes, educators need to be a little bit more understanding and a little bit more supportive of those kids. And I know I'm probably preaching to the choir, but I've seen it too much, and let's get into the stats and you'll see what I get. So yeah. Okay, so violence and victimization. Okay, so I got this, it's really sad is that I have more updated information on kids than I do on adults. The last survey that I saw for adults was in 2015. This one's actually from 2017, was published by the CDC in 2019. So this is about as accurate numbers as I have right now. But if you just take a look at some of these numbers, okay, so, and what's really great about this one, as opposed to some of the other statistics that I look at, is that this actually shows cis male, cis female, and transgender. So this survey was not just given to transgender students. This was given to student body in 6 different states, Colorado being one of them. So these are just some of the statistics, but if you'll notice that, yeah, it's bad for, I mean, I would hate to be a child nowadays. I would hate to be going to school and dealing with what I've seen in these statistics. It's scary. I mean, I don't know. I mean, and the thing is, it could have been just as scary when I was growing up, but you didn't have the internet, you didn't have Google, you didn't have all these reports that were out there that were just, except you could just access. So, but I'm almost going to guarantee it wasn't as bad as it is now. But I think it's because of access to so much. It's information overload. But so, yeah, I mean, I'm looking at some of these things. Threatened or injured with a weapon at school, ever forced to have sexual intercourse, experienced sexual dating violence, experienced physical dating violence, bullied at school. Well, I was constantly bullied at school. They didn't know I was transgender. They just knew I was different, and I was called gay a lot. When I got older, it's like, no, I'm not. Well, maybe, yeah, I'm a lesbian, so I'm gay. Okay. Electronically bullied is another big one nowadays. I mean, social media is a godsend and a curse at the same time, especially for kids. Substance use. This is another thing that was kind of, wow. Now this is in lifetimes, so I'm not exactly sure what they mean in lifetimes. So they might be a little skewed. They may be going from, 6th grade until death. I don't know. But it just said lifetime use, and I didn't have really a lot of time to do any more digging to figure out what they meant by lifetime. So, but just some of these statistics. But you look at the transgender students as opposed to the cis male and cis female. The numbers are staggering. I mean, 70% alcohol use by the transgender students that were interviewed or were given this survey. It's sobering. I don't even. Sorry, guys. I hit the rotating button on the mouse and kind of moved everything around. And then we get into the sexual risks. So I don't have that. I don't have it on this slide deck. It's on my adult slide deck. But in the United States, the trans population has 4 times the number of HIV diagnoses than than anyone else in the United States because of sexual risk. Your transgender community as adults, or it's, I mean, even now with kids with runaways because they've been forced out of homes because of who they are. They're more sexually active because it's the sex trade. It's the only way they know how to survive. It's the one job that they can get. I'm sorry, guys. I can't. But if you look at, and then you have the statistics. I mean, honestly, the lower of all of them is the transgender students who actually have tested for HIV because they know that they're doing what they're doing. The cis male and cis females, they don't think about the fact that they could get HIV because it's not just a gay disease anymore. I mean, when it first came out in the 80s, everybody was like, thinking that, oh, it was good that get rid of the gays. What about your people who are bisexual who have, had sex with male and female, or your the ones that, remember a story about a woman who had been given AIDS by her boyfriend, and she weaponized it, and she would sleep with different men, and then she would leave messages on their mirror and makeup saying, "I have AIDS, so do you." So, it's not just a gay disease anymore. It's just as possible for a straight person to get AIDS from intravenous. I mean, from drug use, from any. It's prevalent anywhere. Not too far. Okay, and then the really bad numbers. The suicide risk. This is the one that hits me the hardest because I've been there. I attempted 3 times. When coming out, I was couch surfing for 2.5 years, thought I wasn't worth a pot to piss in. And I attempted 3 times. Thankfully, I was a client with Jefferson Center, and good therapist, her name is Larice Delamater, and she was one of the best. I also met Chris Teagarden at that point too, and that's where I met my support team, and I've not looked back since. But I look at these numbers, and all I want to do is cry. This is the younger generation. It's the group. These are the lives that are important. These are the lives that are going to be lawyers and doctors and presidents. And they're just, their lives are going because they don't think anybody cares. And I look at transgender students and the pain they feel. And they think that there's nobody there to help them. Sorry.
Don't be sorry. Don't be sorry.
No, it's okay. And that's why I do this. I do this because I want people to know. I want people to see. I want people to understand that these children are precious and they need to be protected. They need to be helped.
They need to be accepted.
Yes, they do. Anyway, moving on. Oh, sorry. I promised myself I wasn't going to do that, and it doesn't help because I do it
All
every
the
time.
time. You're fine. You're fine.
So this is and this goes into the impact, what happens with how it ends up in the suicide or the attempted or and the saddest part about all the suicide or about suicide is that we only have the numbers for attempted. We don't know how many have actually completed. I mean, we know how many have completed suicides. We don't know why. I mean, the morgue or the county coroner doesn't know why they did it. Just know it was suicide. And if they don't present as transgender or LGBTQ period, it just goes down as a suicide. So we don't know the number. We just know the number of attempts because those are the people that have survived. But the societal perceptions are mental illness, negative stereotypes, unhappy, unfulfilled. This is the person that they're looking at, like a transgender person or a gay person or a lesbian or a bisexual or whatever. But this is how they're being perceived. Don't have family or long-term relationships. Well, in some cases, they don't have families or long-term relationships because they've been kicked out of those families and long-term relationships. And then the societal attitudes are pity, prejudice, fear, and hatred. I mean, honestly, fear is the worst thing for fear without educating. Because fear without education leads to hatred and bigotry. Because you don't understand, but you don't want to learn about it, so you do understand. You just rather fear it and hate it. And then the social effects of prejudice, discrimination, ridicule, harassment, verbal or physical abuse, violent assault. Do you know how many transgender women were killed or murdered this year or last year? I apologize. 44 because they were transgender. Now, most of them were transgender women of color, but we're starting that even transgender white women are being murdered now. There was one that happened in Colorado, in Mesa County, back in July. Police officer shot, she was a 20-year-old girl who was having a mental break. And she pulled a knife. Now the cop was 30 feet away and still shot her because he felt his life was in danger, and he was not prosecuted. There are 16, 17, 18-year-old girls, transgender girls, because they're in the sex trade, were murdered because they were transgender. That's not acceptable. Education. We need to educate people. We need to get the message out there. So the best thing for the mediating influences is social support, supportive people, role models, LGBTQ plus community. We need role models because internalized trans and homophobia, I mean, Dr. Leach, you probably know internalized transphobia or internalized phobias, correct?
She's nodding. Yes.
Yeah, I see her nod. She's right underneath you, so I can see her nodding. But for those of you who don't understand the internalization, internalized means that, okay, so I grew up being told that being transgender was a sin. Dressing in women's clothes was a sin. Doing these things was not right. You hear it, you hear it, you hear it, you hear it, and you start to store that. And I'm not kidding, up to even today, I have days where I'm like, I'm sinning, I'm doing something wrong. I shouldn't be doing this. This is wrong. This is wrong. It doesn't go away. Unless you've got a lot. I mean, my therapist needs a therapist. Okay. Just saying. But then you have your coping behaviors, hypervigilance, isolation and becoming withdrawn, passing as hetero, I have to go, when I go see my parents, I have to pass as hetero. I have to be a boy to go see my parents. I was told by my mother that if I showed up at her house dressed as Tabby, that I would be told to leave. Okay. And there are kids out there that are dealing with this on the daily. They have to pretend they have to pretend somebody to be somebody they're not, just so they can survive. And then there's always that attempt to find support. You've got to try to find, you look anywhere for the support. And that's where the pitfalls are at. That's where the drug addiction starts. That's where the sex trade starts, because you look for that support. And anybody who says something nice to you, and especially a child who doesn't understand the world yet. I mean, it's even hard for adults that get sucked into it, because it's still that looking for that acceptance, to be accepted by somebody. Oh, guys, I'm sorry. I'm just like, I get worked up. Okay, so Shauna, let's have some questions, because we're getting into towards the end of this, and I'm sure there's people want to know, tell me to shut the hell up or something.
No. Actually, overwhelmingly supportive comments in here. Everybody so appreciates you. All right, I'm just going to start here. What can parents of kids who are in the questioning or confusion stages do to help them? And are there particular specialists to talk to, or is it best to just be supportive and give them time?
Okay, those are some great, that whole thing is some great questions, and there's a lot of different answers for that. If you're looking for professional help, Jefferson Center has never been known for their trans help until now. We now have trainings that clinicians can go through. I've done all the trainings myself, even though I'm not a clinician. I'm still able to do them. Jefferson Center is also now writing letters for hormone and for sexual corrective surgeries, or gender corrective surgeries, excuse me. So we now, and especially our family outpatient clinicians, our family services outpatient clinicians, FSOP, we have more FSOP clinicians that are now trained to work with transgender clients than we've ever had before. In fact, we've had an influx of, because of COVID, and I've seen, I mean, it's just across the board that we're seeing a lot more. We're seeing an influx in mental health services, a request for mental health services, because it's not stigmatized anymore. The stigmatization has dropped because people have access to, and they're understanding depression, they're understanding anxiety, because now they're suffering from it. So, but yeah, anyway, so if you're looking for professional help, Jefferson Center is one. There are other clinicians out there that are trained to help with this. But the best thing you can do as a parent, just support your child. They're confused. I mean, some kids, it may be a phase. They may grow out of it. But don't lead them in one path, wherever you would like them to go. Let them follow their own path and find out where they want to go. And just support them. I mean, I know it's tough.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point too. So, because I know Morgan has some friends who have changed from bisexual to pansexual to lesbian, just all in the course of 3-4 years.
Because they can, and they should be able to.
Right.
I mean, if you think about it, okay, just a show of hands. How many of you actually at one point questioned? Just for that long questioned, did you really like boys? Or did you really like girls? Or did you really, or did you really want to, what was it like to be a girl? Or what was it like to be a boy? I mean, I have friends, I have a girlfriend who she's like, if I was a man for one day, I would never leave the house. Yeah, you got what she meant. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, it's like, Darcy, no, Darcy. Oh, but yeah, I mean, and kids are, to be a kid nowadays is scary, but it's also so liberating.
Yeah.
Because you know about these things and you can actually think about them. And if you've got a support system, you can explore those things as long as they're safe and you're not doing something stupid.
Mhm.
I mean, my youngest daughter, she is the apple of my eye, and we've had conversations when she was growing up. And I flat out told her, I said, Caitlin, whatever you decide, however you decide, you need to experiment. Whatever you need to do it safely, and I will support you because I love you.
Mhm.
I care about you. I don't care, as long as you're not doing anything illegal, do what you need to do to find out who you are.
And on
And I
your
think
terms.
if we have more kids who are growing up being truthful to themselves, they're going to be truthful to others, and they're going to, who knows what this world would be like if we had people like that instead of the politicians we have in office right now. And moving on.
Okay, next
Okay,
one.
next one.
In LGBTQ, lesbian and gay are called out separately. Is gay therefore primarily used for men and lesbian for women?
I've known some. Okay, in the acronym, yes, with the caveat of that I know of some lesbian women who call themselves gay. I also know some lesbian women who call themselves queer. You also have, I mean, the list goes on, but it's just a name. It's another, again, it's a label. It's how a person chooses to label themselves.
Mhm.
If they want, if a gay man wants to say he's a lesbian, great, you're a lesbian. Moving on. For me, labels suck. I've always said that labeling is, it gives a person who's using the label the power over someone else, because you can actually describe that person with a label, and it's a 1-word, 2-word thing but you've been given power over that other person because you've labeled them. And that's why we're all human. We all bleed red. If you guys take away anything from my presentation, is that we're all human. We all bleed red, unless you're an alien and you're going to bleed green or purple. I don't want to know.
Okay, there's a lot of questions in here. Well, there's lots of questions, but there's a lot of questions in here actually about pronouns, specifically they, them, and theirs. So, and the struggle with not using traditional she, him, her,
Well,
and
let me move through a slide or two, and we'll get to the pronouns, because I got stories for pronouns, and
Right.
I've got an explanation for the they, them, theirs.
well, okay, we'll do that one then in a minute. Next one is going to be, what sort of behaviors can educators or parents stop doing to help trans persons feel more at ease in educational settings, whether they are in your step 1 or step 14?
Again, supportive. Be supportive.
That's a good one.
And okay,
Yep.
here's the thing that I think that's always missed in this. Make sure they know you're a safe person. Safety is the one. Kids are inherently distrustful. They distrust adults, period. No ifs, ands, or buts. At least they did when I was growing up. It's really hard for a child to open up to an adult. But if that adult shows that they're a safe person, that they're a compassionate, understanding, open-minded person, then a child's more apt to open up to them and start sharing those things. And trust, that's the other thing. It's just a whole amount of trust. And it's not just the child trusting the adult, it's the adult trusting the child. Because you think about it, how many adults trust kids?
Yeah. Well, for the most part. So, but yeah.
Well, I mean, but you know what I mean? It's like,
Mhm.
you know, your child, you ask your child, you know, that there's a broken glass on the floor, and you ask your child, did you do that? No. You know, they're the only ones that were in the room at the time when it happened. But kids aren't. It's all about letting them know that you're safe and that they can trust you.
So the next one is, and this is actually a really good one. Is it always hard being transgender?
No, not always. No, in fact, it's probably one of the most liberating things that I've ever been through. To actually, and you know, like I said, I make jokes about waking up and putting myself out there to get tormented and teased, but it's also, I love waking up and putting on makeup, going through my closet and picking out the umpteen numbers of outfits that I have. You know, by the time I end up getting dressed, I have like 3 outfits that have already been thrown on the bed and not worn because I didn't want to. They didn't look good after I pulled them out. But no, it's, and I know these presentations tend to be always on the downer, because I want people to know what the bad sides are. And no, I don't talk about the good side enough, but the good side is that I really love being honest and true to myself.
That's
And
beautiful.
true and honest to everyone else that's around me.
Mhm.
They don't like it, you're missing out on a wonderful person.
So I've
I
got
like to think.
another super awesome question here. How can we help trans people feel seen without calling them out in group or organizational settings?
Treat them like you would anybody else. You don't have to give, honestly, most transgender people don't want the special treatment. They just want treatment like they see everybody else getting. I mean, think about it. I have this thing that I do with my other prep, and we're gonna kind of play with this a little bit. So let me ask you guys a question. What's it like to have sex? What body parts do you have? How do you have sex? What is your real name? Can I see a picture of what you look like before? These are questions that are asked of transgenders all the time. They're invasive. And honestly, have you ever walked up, Shauna, have you ever walked up to anybody that you know and say, how do you have sex?
No, I haven't done that.
Yeah, you don't. And I don't walk up to anybody and go, what did you look like before? Or what body parts do you have? None of my damn business.
Yeah.
And it's nobody else's business. But suddenly when you see a transgender person, suddenly you think it is your business, and it's not. It's
No.
a taboo question whether you're trans or whether you're cis. It's just not questions you ask. And it's embarrassing, and it puts transgender people in that position where it's like, and that's what I mean. How can you help the transgender community by not calling them out? That's it. Treat them like you would treat a cis person or as anyone.
Yeah.
That's all.
Big ones. Boy, we have lots and lots more questions. Do you all mind if we go over our 8:30 time? Is everybody okay with that? Because Tabby still has more to finish with us, and we do have some more questions. And I understand if any of you need to leave. I do understand that. So go ahead. We will.
Totally. And I apologize.
No,
to those
don't you
guys.
dare apologize. So this is wonderful. And I can tell you, actually, overwhelmingly, I am getting text and the, comments in the chat here are so supportive. Everybody loves this. And you are actually, for a Zoom meeting, so the most requested presentation we've had in our community. So I know people are going to continue to enjoy this as well. So so appreciate your time, and Tabby, it's okay with you too if we go over a little.
Yeah, I'm fine because again, I'm all this is not about me, it's about the kids and it's about the community. That's
exactly. It's about helping other people.
Bottom line.
So another question here too. If you see an email with a male name, but they have the pronouns she, her in the signature. Yeah. Well,
okay,
so she and her. Yeah.
This next part, because I've got a slide that'll answer that question.
Okay.
Hang on just a sec. I'm gonna get past this.
Beautiful.
Or maybe
We
I
had
don't have
one question that actually, so we do actually have parents and some students on here too, or some students who are watching at home with their families as well.
Okay.
And asking kind of about the gender changing surgery. How does that work? Does everybody go through it? But
okay, that's a great question. No, not everyone does. The great thing about being a human being and being able to make your own choices is you don't have to. I've been on hormones for 5.5, almost 6 years. Have I had any other things done? No. Am I planning on it? Probably not. I'm a little too old for that stuff. You don't have to. It's how you feel inside. And if you choose to do that, then the more power to you. But you don't have to, and there's not anybody that says you do. It doesn't change who you are inside. It changes what's on the outside. And if you need the outside to match more what you've got on the inside, then like I said, all the power to you. Do it. Do what's good for you. That's it. Just do you.
well, and somebody else brought up here too, some people can't because of the cost. So
and here's the thing. If you're interested and you don't have insurance, check with Denver. It used to be DG, Denver General, but now it's Denver Health, whatever it's called, the hospital. They actually have a transgender program that I believe, now don't quote me on this, but I believe Medicaid is actually starting to pay for some of the services. You still have to get your letters. You still have to you still have to jump through the hoops. But check with Denver. I think it's Denver Health now, but check with Denver Health. If you're looking at cost prohibitiveness, because Denver Health does have programs.
Tabby,
and Denver Health has a whole wing dedicated to transgender.
a quick question here with this one too, also, because someone did ask too, as more people are learning, do you feel like this is getting better? And then would you also share, what was that hashtag that you told me about? Oh gosh, it was something to do with the trans.
Oh, trans health fails.
Yes, that's what it is. Trans health fails. The hashtag on Twitter. Go look up some of the stories.
Yeah, please. I can tell you one story that is on there. There was, it's about a Michigan woman, trans woman, who was taken to the hospital by one of her friends. And they went into the hospital and they sat down in the emergency room, and this girl was really sick. I mean, really sick. The doctor came out called the nurses over and they all started pointing and laughing at her. They promptly turned around or left the emergency room, left. The girl passed away 2 days later because she couldn't face going back to the hospital again. Do I feel like it's getting better? In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. Thankfully, we don't have a certain person in office now. So all the transgender rights and things that we were given when Obama was in office and were rolled back during the last administration are being rolled forward again with this administration. And I hope and pray. I know the state of Colorado didn't care about what was going on in Washington because we've had so much more progressive movements because, or with the transgender and LGBTQ and mental health. I support mental health just as much as I do the transgender community. Mental health is important to the transgender community. And if you are transgender and you're not seeing a therapist, please start seeing a therapist. You can't get through this on your own. Lord knows I tried for years.
You should go to therapy. So
I agree, but
yeah, everyone.
And
should.
you don't, yeah, everyone should. Because
at least try it. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're gonna have to try it more than once sometimes because you've got to find the right fit. I mean, I've been through a lot of different therapists because there just wasn't that click.
Mm-hmm.
But when you do get that click, it's great because it's one person out of everybody you know that doesn't know a damn thing about you, and you can tell them anything. And they're not going to judge you because of what you've told them. They're going to help you with the things that you're having issues with. And they're going to teach you skills and things to make it easier for you to deal with those hard to deal with things.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned more from being in therapy than I would have ever learned anywhere else.
I think we all can, to be honest with you. So
Agreed.
That's how we are completely the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So questions are still piling up, but here's what I'm thinking. Since you're going to cover the they, them too, why don't we let you go through more of your presentation here too, and then I'll ask more questions.
Okay. So we're going to jump through the rest of this real quick. This is just a kind of synopsis of what's been done since 2013. This is the map of cities and counties that have bans on sexual orientation and gender identity change efforts, which means they're stopping the discrimination against this. I actually testified in front of the state Senate about the ban on conversion therapy that got passed. Thank God.
Unfortunately, it's not applicable to religious organizations.
Not yet.
And
Not
that's
yet.
where we still have problems.
Right. And unfortunately, but what we also have is that along with that is the new law about the age of minors being able to seek out mental health without parental permission.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little sticky when it comes to the whole billing thing, but at that point, so yeah, conversion therapy, if parents are sending their kids to religious, because I wasn't a kid when I got sent to conversion therapy. I was 32. I was 32 years old. There was one of my attempts to come out, and my ex-wife flat out told me that if I did it again, that she was going to take my daughter away. I would never see her again. And then promptly told my sister, who promptly told my mother, who promptly told my grandparents. And I was told that if I didn't go to see a Christian therapist, that I was going to lose my daughter and they would never speak to me again. So I went to said Christian therapist for one session. It's in her office for 2 hours. And she would not let me leave until I spoke in tongues. Yeah. I am a great actress, and I had spent enough time around charismatic Baptists to know what tongues kind of sounded like. So yeah, I faked it. So yeah, it's not just, and it's not, yeah, the kids, and God, I feel sorry for the kids that would have to go through that. I mean, and that's why I testified, because I don't want to see anybody have to go through that. That's just, it's like almost like an exorcism. You know, the only thing that didn't happen is I didn't throw up pea soup. She might have, but I didn't. Anyway, moving on. But there are also 6 different states, including, get this, including Texas, that has actually got bills on the books for this year's, or for this season session, to ban conversion therapy and to ban or to make it easier for people to have their name changed, and to for gender corrective surgeries. So, you know, we're starting to see that shift. It's just, and you know, please put me out of a job, put me out of having to do this, because I would just as soon not have to do this anymore. But I will keep doing it until I don't have to anymore, or I'm dead.
We'll keep working on it.
Whichever comes first. Anyway, so substance, SAMHSA. SAMHSA has started a new program for substance abuse and treatment for the LGBTQ. You have the Equality Act that came out in 2019 that, you know, it was buried under all the other stuff that was going on in 2019, but it was passed. Oh man, I've got links on these too, so you can check on them too. And then the bottom one, I had to put this one on here because when I was putting this slide together, I saw this and went, this is the coolest freaking idea ever. Halloween, these kids were getting Kit Kats or getting candy bars that they thought were candy bars, but they were actually flash drives that had transgender and non-conforming students' rights on them. All they had to do was plug it into their computer and it would give them this list of their rights. This was awesome. This is probably one of the best things I've ever seen. And I think that this is something that maybe should happen more often. Just saying. So we talked about labels. These are labels you definitely don't use. I mean, you're still going to have some older transgender people that will use transvestite and transsexual, but I don't, and I don't like them. They sound harsh and horrible and judgmental. Tranny is definitely one. Okay, so show of hands. Who knows what the term for hermaphrodite is now?
I don't think I do.
Intersexed.
Oh.
Now, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you this. Which sounds better, intersexed or hermaphrodite?
Intersexed.
Exactly.
Intersect.
Definitely. Intersect or intersexed. And we could go another 2 hours on how I feel about what happens with intersex children when they're born. We're not going to. And it and that, I mean, there are some, honestly, there are some transgender people who don't have a problem with it. I'm sorry, I'm not an inanimate object. I'm a human being, and I don't like being described as it.
Well,
That's another
people
story
do
I could
that
tell.
really, and you can see that on social media. The people who have used the it are doing it really just to disparage people, and you can watch it on social media. It's disgusting, but you can see it.
Well, thankfully, I don't see that anymore because I've banned all those people that have been harassing. it's like, I don't know if anybody's heard the story about the girl that lived in Fort Collins that was murdered by her boyfriend. And when the cops came to pick him up, he kept saying, I killed it. I killed it. I put it out of its misery. That's just one of the reasons why I don't like the word it. The other reason is when I went to Rocky Mountain National Park 3 years ago and was called it by park personnel because I was trying to use the women's bathroom. My other half had a lot to say to that person. We're just going to leave it at that. Okay, pronouns. So this is how I explain they them. Okay, so I know I'm an English Nazi. I have a really hard time with improper use of English. Was one of my strong suits in high school. But this is how a person who used the non-gender or the they them pronouns explained it to me. When somebody asked you, have you seen so-and-so? And you look over and go, yeah, they're over there. Or have you seen them? And so if you put it in that context, it's like, okay, so my other half is non-binary. So they use they, them pronouns. And as long as I think about it that way, it's not hard for me to say, yeah, they're right there. So it's just tweaking your brain just a little bit. I know the twist hurts sometimes, and it takes a minute to get, it will take a while. And the one thing that I always say to people is, if you know you've made a mistake, apologize immediately. Or as soon as you realize you've done that, apologize. Let them know that you're sorry, and then be genuine about your apology, because it's important. A transgender person is going to know that you're going to screw up, that you're going to make a mistake. It's going to happen, guaranteed, no matter if I make them. It's hard. It's easier for me, or it's not as easy for me, but in my job, because of the way our charts are set up, it's hard for me to tell until after I've already pulled the client up and then gone, oh, I'm sorry, but it happens. It's going to happen to anyone. It's going to happen. Just be genuine about your apology and try to make amends. Now, if you don't, here's the biggest thing is, I wish everybody would do this. Instead of trying to guess if the person's trans or not, when you introduce yourself, hi, my name's Tabitha and I use she, her pronouns. What pronouns would you prefer? How hard is that? That is like, it could be the new introduction. And then there's no questions. There's no doubt. It's there. And that's even when you introduce yourself to a cis person.
Mm-hmm. I actually have to say too, one of the suicide preventions we did back in the fall, we had one of our transgender students joined, and so we're so pleased. So when we were this is when we were still in person, and I brought name tags and asked everybody to put their pronouns on it.
Was I at that? Were Amy and I there? At that
yeah,
one,
actually,
it was when Kelly. Was it Kelly and?
Yep.
Well, Kelly and.
Yep. I don't want to
Kelly
name.
And her.
I don't want to name names on this because we're recording. But
right.
That yes. So, and they were very, very excited. So to have that happen. So it makes a big difference.
It does. It makes a trans person feel like they're actually a part of something. They're actually being accepted and brought into the inner circle as opposed to being on the outside looking in. It's huge. Now, you guys are looking at the normal pronouns, and if you don't know if you don't know how the person is presenting, always use their name. It's the safest bet. But the bottom 5, I blame on the millennials. Now, this is not a dig on the millennials. My other half is a millennial. I have the utmost respect for the trailblazing millennials. I don't care what the boomers are saying about millennials. Millennials have been given the raw end of the deal since the day they were born, because unfortunately we put them there. So in their trailblazing, the way they are about trailblazing, they came up with their own pronouns. So the em, the per, see sir, v ver, z zim are their own pronouns. Now I've only seen them used, I've seen the v ver used once or twice working at Jefferson Center. But you'll probably be running into these more often as the years go on, because they wanted to show that they were just different. And that's great. I love that. I love the fact that they just went, screw y'all. You people can go to hell. We're doing it our way. And I hope that they keep that up.
And this, we do have your pronoun guide on our website on that page as well. So
okay,
great
so
tool.
here's real quick words of advice. Listen, when you're talking to somebody, when you introduce yourself, they're going to introduce themselves back. Listen to what they're doing. Or you're talking to someone on the phone. When you say, hi, this is Tabitha, I'm calling for whatever, and they're like, oh, well, or may I speak to, or whatever, and they're going to tell you what their chosen name is. 9 times out of 10, they're going to tell you who they really are, what they choose to be called. And if you're listening, you use it. If you don't listen, then you're starting off on the wrong foot already. Pay attention. Again, same thing. Pay attention. Pay attention to body language. Pay attention to presentation. Pay attention to mannerisms. Things that we call them tells. But if you're paying attention to who you're talking to and not just zoning out, you're going to pick up on a lot of things that you don't normally pick up on. Don't assume. You're going to run into some people who identify as transgender that you would look at them and go, the cowboy boots, the skirt, and the beard just aren't working. But if that's what you prefer to be, if that's what you choose, that's great. So don't assume. And I'm not going to get into why I brought that specific outfit up. Be sincere. Again, when you're apologizing, you make a mistake. Be sincere about your apology. Be sincere about anything that you're saying to them. Be respectful. That's all anybody asks is to be respected. Whether you're, unless you're having sex with animals, even then, I don't want to know about it. But be respectful. Don't judge. And sometimes it's really hard for people to not judge. And it's not hard for me. I never have a problem with judging. Moving on. Be informed. If you don't know something, there's plenty of information out there. If you're not clear on anything. I mean, I'm not just talking about LGBTQ, trans, anything. Again, fear leads to hate. And you're only afraid of something because you don't understand it. So if you're afraid of something, I mean, I'm still deathly afraid of spiders, but I do hate them. But I know about them, and I know they're okay as long as they're outside. When they're inside my house, sorry, all bets are off. You're dead. Or that's just the way it is. But seriously, be informed. Learn. Always learn. That's another thing. the more you learn, the less you're going to be afraid of things, whether it be transgender or spiders. Just educate yourself.
People,
Yes.
people.
And remember, you seriously have no idea what people are dealing with in their personal lives. Unless you're a therapist, and then you kind of have an idea, unless they're not being very open. But just be nice. It's that simple. Just treat everyone with respect. And if we all start doing that, then we may not have some of the issues that we've been having. Okay, and I'm pretty much done. These are the resources, which I believe, I gave you that resource list too, right? You've got that on the website?
I think we have a lot of this actually is on the website. So, but, and we've
Okay.
added more over time too, and I'm happy to always continue to add more as well.
Okay, and I've got these. These are actually PDF files.
Okay.
In fact, one of them the PDF actually includes the statistics, that last one from the CDC.
Okay.
That one actually includes the tables that I got. I took the statistics from.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, I'll just grab them from you and we'll build it up on the event page and link to, of course, the original resource as well, so that everything's right there.
Oh, well, okay. So actually, hang on. Let me get, this is my emails. If you guys are interested in outreaching, or if you need any information, or if there's something I can do for you. These are both my emails. That's one, the top one is my work email. The bottom one is my personal. And you can send to either or both. Actually, probably better if you send it to my work email, because that's Shauna. I don't look at I had to actually,
Yeah.
Facebook message Shauna and said, "Are we doing this on Zoom, or what are we doing this on?" She's like, "I sent it to you on a couple of days ago." Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
all good. So, and if you email me, if you need to get a hold of Tabby for anything or have other questions, or as people, in general in the community are watching this going forward, please feel free to reach out to me. President at jeffcopta.org, and we will get answers for you as well. So we're going to go ahead and keep doing some questions. And I know it's getting late. If somebody needs to go, we have a couple students on here too. So if you need to go do homework or it's bedtime, you go to bed. That's fine. And Tabby, if you want to jump off of the screen or stop the screen share.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
We'll just go through and
yes.
ask some more questions if that's okay.
That's fine.
All right.
Oh, wow. Now I can see the questions.
Oh, there you go. And now you can see everybody's faces too. What are the different ways transgender people express themselves? As in, how would they describe themselves?
How would a transgender person describe themselves? Is that the question?
Yes.
I guess it depends on the transgender person.
Just
like I said, yeah, it's like anyone else. I mean, I describe myself as a trans female lesbian who is pagan. And, if anybody really wants to know, which, I mean, I'm also sharing a whole lot more information than what most people would share. I mean, how would you describe yourself?
Right, exactly. I'm a pretty boring cisgendered white woman, so who lives in the.
Well, but okay, but
yeah.
in a normal situation, would you even use cis?
I do
if
now.
You were describing yourself.
I honestly.
Well, you would now, but I mean.
Yeah. No. I mean.
My point is that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying. My point is that. Why should a transgender have to describe themselves? A transgender person have to describe themselves?
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm going to, or if I'm filling out a survey or how I would, that's one thing. But just meeting somebody on the street, I don't really share a whole lot of information.
Yeah, and I don't think you need to. It's some of it is just questions, because this is new to a lot of people.
Well, and I get that, and that's what I mean. I'm not judging on that. I'm just saying that it's like, these are questions that I get because, you know, it's new and it's different and stuff. But
Right.
if you just, instead of take transgender out of the equation, put person into that position where you have transgender, and then some of your answers are a lot easier to come up with.
Here
You
is
know,
a
I'm,
really great question for you. And I don't know if you know this one, it might be just different for everybody, but is there an ideal age to undergo transition surgery? You and I had the common friend that I introduced you to at the One Suicide Prevention Training. And you know, I mean, that particular mom is a nurse, and
right.
her student is actually going through transition right now, still in high school. So
Right. They're okay. As far as the medical community is concerned, if you're at the age of 10, I believe, or right before you start puberty, they can put you on hormone blockers that will stop puberty from happening until you've decided what it is you want to do, and, you know, making the informed choices. And that's, again, going back to being in with therapy and being with a therapist and having, you know, talking through these things, and hopefully having parents that support. Because right now, yes, a child can seek out mental health therapy, mental health services at the age of 13. They can't get anything to do with gender affirming anything until they reach the age of majority, or when they turn 16, they file for emancipation. And emancipation is not an easy thing to get.
right.
So
Here's another really good one too, about how can we best be supportive of parents of transgender students? You know, we know that it's not easy for them either, and especially as they're advocating for their children in environments. How do we do?
if it's a parent that's advocating for their child, I think that as an administrator, as an educator, you try to do everything you can to be supportive of that parent and child, and support the parent with, I mean, I guess it comes down to what resources are available. What can, as an educator, what can you do? I mean, some of it's like, for me, it's just a generic answer, support. But what do educators have available to them to be able to help support those parents and kids?
Good one. The blue map, just a quick clarification on the blue map area that was shown on there. So that's where actually
those are states or counties.
Yeah.
Those are states or counties that have passed legislation banning discrimination against transgender people. So the little blue dots inside the states, those are actually just counties. The entire state has not ratified or done anything to ban anything. In fact, I point that out as the good stuff, but there's also a lot of states that are trying to pass, and even the Republicans here in Colorado are trying to pass some really nasty bills against the LGBTQ and transgender people. So it happens.
There was another question in the chat about intersex, and so I have gone ahead and copied the definition into the chat there. So about what that.
Yeah, I see that.
Perfect. Let me see. There's
that's
more
perfect.
here.
Yes. Well, and the thing about intersex is that this is one description of intersex, but it could also mean anything from not having either one, or not, or both, or different stages of said things. And yeah, I mean, when you get into intersex, there's so many things that could be considered intersex. I've done some reading on it, and it's like, it just gets mind-boggling. You just suddenly start going, But anyway,
It's
yes.
good content. It actually does not look like we have any further questions, but there's a whole bunch of thank yous in here for you.
I see. Yeah, I'm seeing that. Yeah.
So-
Nice.
And I
Yeah.
don't see any more. Most of the questions were sent to me private message. I think I've got everything. If I don't, would you please send me a private message if you have something else that you don't want to type in the group chat? Again, you are in a safe place, so nobody here is going to judge absolute anyone. I am going to go ahead and end our recording so that we have this video for everybody and we can keep sharing this, and feel free to share the page. I'll work really hard to get this up here in the next day or two. And I've got my pom-poms by my computer, so I don't know. So because I'm the 50-year-old cheerleader, so as you know, what. Anyway, Tabby, I love you. Thank you for everything. I wish we were doing this in person so that you and I could get together
I
after.
do too, because
Go out
it's so
for
much easier when you're doing it in person. And because I can see your lovely faces, or most of you. I just can't read body language. And, sometimes I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to go for it. And if I've offended, or, people are tuning me out, I guess I don't know.
No, I think I'm going to end the recording right quick. So thank you everyone for joining us for this. Have a really